Welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. I am Kristen Boyce, a licensed marriage and family therapist with a private practice, Pathways to Healing Counseling. Through conversations, education, strategies, and shared stories, we will be closing the chapter on all the thoughts, feelings, people, and circumstances that don't serve you anymore and open the door to possibilities and the real you. You won't want to miss an episode, so be sure to subscribe. Welcome to this week's Close the Chapter podcast. I am so grateful you are here for this important episode on how to create more ease and flow into your life. Don't we all need that? When we're busy, we're feeling overwhelmed, we feel stressed, and we have a hard time sometimes loving people well because of it or because of our past. So this episode is really important on identifying our emotions, how to work through them to create more ease and flow. And I really want to encourage you right now in this very moment, or write it down or make a note to jump on to the mailing list, of the email mailing list. You will get a free journal sent to your inbox, and you will get all future episodes, anything that I'm doing, all the content that I'm creating, you will get that. And it'll be delivered right to you. So you can go to kristendboyce.com, KRISTENDBOICE.com/free resources. And you will get the newsletter every week. It will be worth your while. So go do that right now. And I want to introduce you to this week's guest. We have Dr. Stacie Lauro. And I read her background. It is impressive. And we talk about that on the podcast, her training in psychiatry. Dr. Stacie is a board certified psychiatrist and trained in psychoanalytic work with 25 years of experience in helping clients to heal from depression, anxiety, and trauma. Through various techniques, Dr. Stacie teaches what to do with your feelings, why you should listen to your inner guidance, and how to reconnect with your authentic self in order to live your most fully fulfilling life. I think it's so important that we're learning how to reconnect with who we really are. So we're not having to perform, please, placate, pretend, or be anyone else masked that we are not. And it creates a sense of freedom. And so in this episode, we talk a lot about her history and her journey, and then how she helps her clients receive the same freedom and flow in their lives. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Dr. Stacie. Stacie Lauro, welcome to the Close the Chapter podcast. I am thrilled to have you on. I got on before our time together, and your experience and educational background is unbelievable. I am so glad to have you here with us to talk about anxiety, depression, trauma, all the things. So welcome.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here. I'm grateful to be on the show. It's an amazing show.
Thank you so much. So tell us about your background and how you got to be where you are today. A little bit about your story.
Sure. So I was trained as a psychiatrist, went to medical school, and have been practicing for 25 years. Somewhere in the middle of my career, I decided I also wanted to learn more about therapy and felt that combining the processes is very relevant. I didn't feel like just giving medications and sending people on their way was any kind of answer. I saw people as people. So I trained in psychoanalysis and learned a lot about all different types of therapy and combined therapeutic practices. Along my journey, and I studied in residency. I'm sort of a lifelong learner, so I'm always learning something. As in residency, I did do special additional training also in family and marriage counseling and in all different types of things, in addition to just the training. Along my journey in my own life, I had experiences in which I sought help from counselors and found that I think there was a lack. I think are moving sort of in a direction. I think the profession has grown so much. What I saw was that there's time for another shift that's going on. I think we came from a generation who was told not to feel their feelings, to being aware that we need to feel our feelings and let them out. And I think the next shift involves releasing them and knowing what to do with them and moving on from them and not living in the past. That sort of came about from my own journey. I had a very bad divorce and it was very hard to get help for it. And I also saw so much disconnection and so much greed in the court system that I really want, even among professionals, that I really wanted to try to change that and try to be the change that I want to see in the world. And from there, I started studying more esoteric and spiritual modalities. And I went into yoga and meditation and found answers through doing that, and sort of got into the flow and discovered that science is really showing that we're energetic beings. And I think that's the part in psychology that we were missing. The root of the word psi, PSI is, I know it's spelled PSY, but PSI is the Greek letter for soul. And I think we need to be healing people's souls, and that we're energetic beings, not just physical bodies, not just external, materialistic, physical goings on. And so I think the shift is from chasing that to connecting with each other to bring about change.
I love this so much. So with your background, you went to Emory.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. In Atlanta, Georgia, I went to Emory College and Medical School. I did a year of internal medicine there before deciding that I would switch into psychiatry. And that came about more or less because I saw people come in with physical diagnoses, diabetes, pain, hypertension. And I thought that the root cause went deeper, that I could hand them a prescription, but there was so much more to it. At the time, I realized that I think psychiatry was going to be coming a long way, that there was a lot to learn and know and research and find out about psychiatry, that field was going to be a booming and much needed field. And so that's how I made the shift to psychiatry.
Yeah, you were right on target. I mean, we are now, there's a shortage of not only mental health providers, but psychiatrists.
Yes.
And then it sounds like you had a journey. You had some psychoanalytic work. I mean, it looks like you were in New York doing with the Psychoanalytic Institute. Is that right?
Yes, I did that for a year during my last year of residency training. And that's how I originally got interested in psychoanalysis type of therapy. And that therapy is really neat because it really is about listening to the client in a way in which you read between the lines and you see the metaphors and things. And it's a very deep level of knowing someone. So I think it was very profound and useful, and also very, in a way, without my knowing it then, but very spiritual. And I think it's easy for me now to sort of, in spiritual terms, find what we call flow. One, because I think that was sort of my nature, but two, because I've had training and experience in treating patients in that way.
How did you find your flow? Like, I love this term flow because I was on a plane. Let me tell you a little story. And I had my journal out and I thought, I'm just going to sit here and see what comes through. So I'm writing, and 10 pages later, and I called it in my writing, the flow. I was just in the flow and it was spilling through me. And I was like, how do I maintain this state of flow? Yeah. So tell me about flow and how you have learned to get into flow, given all the things you went through, a divorce. I mean, you have some life circumstances that are awakening.
Yeah, well, and I think that goes back to the shift in psychiatry too. And what I hope we can also get into talking about is listening to your feelings and your inner guidance. I think your feelings are really your intuition and your flow talking to you. We feel it physically in our body. It manifests physically, but we have nerve connections that give us what we call butterflies in the stomach and the feeling of love in our heart as chest pressure. And so finding the flow, I think that started from a young age. I think I was always sort of in tune to my feelings. And I think that's another reason I went along this path to psychiatry. But how I found it later on actually was in the court system. I learned that it's very different than in the psychological world. And you shouldn't tell people what you're feeling because they use it against you in court. And I kept my mouth shut and held a lot of stuff in for a long time and felt very ill and became very unhappy. Hiding things from people wasn't working. but telling everybody everything wasn't working either. And so I kind of found the path. I said, well, let me try this. I keep hearing about meditation and yoga and to go within. And that's really when I found my flow, when I started doing those things, when I started doing yoga and I started meditating, I started really learning how to be in my feelings, really how to use my feelings, how to release my feelings, how to connect with each other people again without, I guess, still using my feelings, but managing my feelings and my turmoil, sort of healing myself within. And I think that's also part of the next phase, is that as therapists, psychologists, social workers, psychiatrists, the next phase is to be the guide for people, to teach them how to go within, to find their own inner guidance. Because I think we all come here with a plan, to speak spiritually, even if you don't look at it that way. I think we all have an individual path. And so for me to tell you what's right to do on your path, I do not think is helpful and can be harmful. So what I've also found is that it's helpful to be people's guides, to teach them how to find the answers for themselves within themselves, that my answer for me is not your answer for you, and that people can heal themselves and we can help teach them how to do that.
And what I find with that is we have to work on the ego state. I love Dr. Wayne Dyer when he said ego is edging God out. Because, right?
That's great.
I love that. That has stuck with me in such a massive way that I'm constantly, in my little writing that I was doing on the airplane, one of the downloads I got is constantly checking that ego.
Yeah.
To not seek that outside validation to say, am I enough? Do you like me? Even though I've been doing this inner child work for a long time, it's a constant check of noticing that ego state, because that then can take you out of the flow.
Yes.
If you will, which is kind of what you're saying, because the answers lie within.
Yes. Yes. And the ego is very much external. Does this person approve? Is this what this person would do? Or what are they going to think of me? Or if I just have this one thing, or if my house is bigger, if I have a different car, or, if I look different, its ego is very external. And I get his statement, but I also, my own personal view is that we're all interconnected, and some people still call that God. And so some people find God within themselves, and that's okay too, if that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
But looking for an external God, like, am I doing it okay, God? Yes, that's the ego. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about is this journey you've been on.
Yes.
Given your life experiences, to go, emotions are healthy, emotions are helpful.
Yes.
I love that you said about the court system.
Yes.
And how many people feel like, even in their family system, the court system, whatever system they're in, that if they're vulnerable and they say how they feel, that'll be manipulative and it will be used as a weapon of mass destruction against them.
Will be. Yes. It does a lot of damage especially to innocent children.
And so where do we kind of balance this being vulnerable and saying how we feel without hiding? Like you said, okay, I do meditation, I'm healing myself. There's this position of being transparent in relationships and saying how you feel.
Yes.
Rather than shoving it down, eating our emotions, getting on social media, all the distractions. How do you balance that?
So I think that's a great question. I think it's somewhat of a learning process. Again, the court system, I don't think is the best place to bear your feelings, but in your own personal relationships, it's a prerequisite really to having a close connection to somebody, is just being able to share intimately your feelings and discuss when you have ruptures and disagreements, and have a mutual interaction in which each party is respected and their feelings are respected, and come to some sort of agreement about it, but being able to share your authenticity. And I think if you notice then that you cannot do that, you're shut down, manipulated, or at least somebody tries to do that to you, that you don't allow it. And there comes a point where you have to say, this is not a mutual, respectful relationship, and walk away. I do promote the concept of unity and loving everyone unconditionally, regardless. That also means to love yourself unconditionally and to look at the highest good of all. So sometimes loving yourself unconditionally is walking away and still saying, I know you're doing these things. I know that you act like this towards me and try to do these things towards me. I'm not going to allow it. I still love you. I wish you the best. And I think when we do that, it's not only taking care of ourselves, but really for the highest good of everyone, because we're not spreading any kind of hatred and judgment and ego. And it's a very, very different way of living than what we've come from. I mean, we're growing very rapidly, but I think it will make huge changes in the world. My book that I told you about before we were talking about the show is about energy and how we're all interconnected. And when we don't put out any hatred or jealousy, or it's not out there, it doesn't need to be transmuted. It doesn't come back to us as that when we just do our best in every moment to be loving.
Yeah. And I think that's so key, being loving. I think love is flow to me. Love is being in
It
the
is.
flow.
It is
That's what
being.
it means to me. And when someone's hurt you, like clients all the time, we all have hurts. People have hurt us. People have done not okay things to us, very
Yes.
abusive things to us, even as
Yeah.
little children. And many, many clients have gone through physical, sexual abuse, mental abuse, emotional abuse. How do you get to the love part, that flow when
Yes.
these bad things have happened, these
Yes.
traumatic things?
So again, I don't want to speak for anyone, but to find a way in which to look at it. And what I've found is to think that, what is the lesson I can learn out of what happened to me? Maybe it's walking away. Maybe it's still being loving of the soul inside that person, even though I don't like the behavior of that person, and not letting them hurt me anymore, to set up a boundary, but just to stand in the space of love no matter what. That you're not going to change who I am at my soul core. I'm still a loving human being, regardless of how you disrespected that, took advantage of that, hurt that, and try to release that hurt and just, again, look at it sort of in a bigger picture, bird's eye view of, I believe that we've had many lifetimes and that each lifetime we're learning. And that's why we're evolving so much. And we're at a point of transitioning to a higher state of consciousness evolution that comes through the heart and being in a loving flow. And so I think that finding your flow through love and releasing things in that way and taking a bigger picture view of the beautiful, loving soul that you are may be very helpful and very healing. I know for me, I'll tell you my own experience. I would do meditations, and this is in my book too. I did a lot of releases to heal. And I would literally feel heaviness, denseness coming out of different parts of my body during meditation, during different yoga postures. And again, I found being in nature very helpful too. And I think we hold these emotions and these densities, these lower vibrating energies of anger and jealousy and hatred. We can hold them in our body. Now they're important. They give us information, like I said, to know, okay, well, something's going on here. What do I do? Do I stay away from this person? How do I sit down? Something's not right. Change something, but not to hold on to it, because then it starts to affect us and change our physical body, and it can change our reactions and take us out of that loving place, which takes us out of flow and takes us away from our path.
How much do you think fear blocks flow? Like, talk to me about your thoughts on fear.
That's a great one. I think fear is a huge blocker of flow. And again, it's a very important emotion. Our emotions are there for a reason, and it tells us something, but I think we can hold on to it. And that's where the block comes. So we tend to say, I was hurt by this type of person before. Let me stay away from sometimes even people in general. And I think when we practice, it's really a practice of trying to figure out who we can trust, letting ourselves express ourselves to people little by little, opening up, finding safety, and a process of figuring out who to do that with, when to do that, when we can't do that. And no matter what, trying to stay in the position of love. Because when we're fearful, we really can't love. We have a very hard time loving.
Because the fear kind of takes over. And I think the self-doubt about not trusting yourself, like, oh, how did I choose? Like, if you're later in relationships, how did I choose this partner?
Right.
And now, if I didn't see that, how am I going to trust anybody else? I don't even trust myself to make decisions.
Yeah. And I beat myself up about that when I went through that, for sure. In fact, in a way, it's probably not good to compare, but I was a psychiatrist. So I said, I can't be a good psychiatrist if I chose this person, but really life is a learning process. And we can't know our ABCs before we know our ABCs. We can't learn how to add 2 + 2 before so it's really a learning process. And we're not taught this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, we're not taught what to look for. We're not taught that we should be looking for mutually respectful relationships. And we're not taught that we should share our feelings. And that's one of the ways that we're watching and looking for responses. And we're not taught that. So how can we know? The first time I went to a therapist, I was mortified because I'm like, well, I'm a psychiatrist. What shouldn't be going to a therapist? And yet I said to the therapist, I said, look, I don't know. My partner did not like expressing my feelings. I don't know what to do with my feelings. I went to Target. I don't see a box to store them in. I don't know what to do with them.
Exactly.
So I think that's a big part of it.
It is. I think that is what I teach most often is connecting to your emotions is essential for you to begin to trust yourself, to know yourself, to get into that love and flow state. Is it always going to feel like love all the time? I think no. I mean, we're humans, we're spiritual beings, but we're also human beings having this experience. And so to offer yourself that compassion to go, okay, I go to therapy, I'm a therapist. And I think that is healthy. I think that is what healthy looks like. It's saying, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to tend to nurture and process what's really going on instead of suppressing, repressing, numbing, acting it out. That is so big. I tell people just you facing the pain, facing the fear, facing the shame, that takes so much courage.
And sometimes even a step before that is learning what your feelings are, learning how to label them. Sometimes just people come in feeling anxious. They don't even know what the different feelings they're feeling are. They don't even know how to label them sometimes because, again, we're coming from a background of, and this is changing. This is when I grew up. I mean, I'm talking about 50 years. I'm 50. So this is,
like we both grew up like this. I mean, we didn't do feelings.
Exactly. But you're a crybaby or you shouldn't be angry. You're a girl kind of thing.
I'll give you something to cry about.
Exactly. So our emotions were supposed to, even the emotion of love then was considered, well, then that was weak. Now you see parents saying, I love you and hugging. That wasn't as common back then.
No.
So we're coming a long way, but I think people really sometimes come in without even knowing how to label their feelings.
We really were conditioned out of a voice. I mean, you were told to be obedient, compliant.
Absolutely.
Do what I say, don't be disrespectful. And so what do we learn? To just suppress, repress our truth and not rock the boat.
Yes, exactly.
Not create discord, not make someone upset or mad at us, not have someone displeased with us because that didn't feel good.
Exactly. Well, you're older, you know better. And that's not necessarily the case.
Yes. Well, because they didn't get all this information that we now have. They didn't get the neuroscience and all of the research now saying emotions essential. Processing those core emotions. That's why I love the Disney movie Inside Out, because it gives people those core emotions, right? It gives them an introduction into naming them.
Yeah, exactly. And listening to them.
Exactly. And then trusting that's okay to have them and there's nothing wrong with you because they're like, well, I'm too much. I'm too sensitive. You know, that's the messages a lot of people got.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. You're just too sensitive. You're crying over everything. Do you have to cry over everything? It's like, well, that was healthy. That was a way to metabolize the pain, metabolize the fear, metabolize what was going on the inside. But nobody knew that.
Absolutely.
It's a releasing of all of that's being held in the body. That's why I love crying. I mean, you don't have to cry. It's a form of release. By the breath is so wonderful. Yeah. But we didn't know that. We didn't know we're metabolizing, we're releasing what's being held in the body.
Yeah. And that's where I've seen the progression, I think, is going from expressing your feeling and then sort of releasing them, knowing what to do with them.
Exactly. And knowing that the body is connected to the emotions. That we love Dr. Basil Vanderkolk's work on The Body Keeps the Score, his book.
Yes,
they kind of open the door, and Peter Levine's work on somatic experiencing. I mean, there's a bunch of thought leaders that have really said you've got to listen to your body. Like you said, when you were going through this court experience and divorce, your body was screaming at you.
It was. Yeah. And I see that all the time with clients.
Because we weren't taught that. We were really taught to disconnect or numb the body in a
Very
lot of
much.
ways.
And we were, yeah, I mean, we were there's a lot of separateness that went on, separating the physical body from the emotional body as if they weren't connected, separating the disease of the heart from the disease from you as a person as a whole, from your emotions, from all that. And I think we're realizing, and as I said, science is proving that we're all energy and it's really all interconnected.
Yes. As we kind of process, let's say someone's like, I want to get less afraid, less in my pain body, and more connected to flow. What are some of the things that you recommend? We talked about meditation, yoga. What are some of the things that you recommend people get started? Naming your emotions. What else?
Yes. So naming your emotions, honoring them, releasing them, letting them go, looking at them and saying, what is this feeling trying to tell me? And I think we can't really release them until we look at it that way. I don't know, maybe you can, but I think that that's helpful because there's another theory that if we don't learn the lesson, it keeps coming back to us. So we probably can release it, but it may happen again. So I think that that's really the step. The next step is to, what is this feeling telling me? What is a lesson I can learn here? And then releasing the emotion and living in the now moment, putting that behind us and every moment being a new moment, living in the now moment. Things that help people stay in the flow. As we said, I think anything that brings you into the moment, into yourself, such as, creative things, being creative, painting, writing, drawing, music. Those are some of the other things that you can do. I think also, we could talk about nutrition. I think nutrition matters as well. What we put into our body comes to us with an energy. Mm-hmm. If we're talking about everything is energy, we have the energy of the sun in the plants and we have animal energy. So some people feel better actually eating vegetarian. So nutrition becomes also important. So anything really, I think everything's really in the flow. So who you surround yourself with, people-wise, I think another way that can put you in the flow. I like the analogy of we're all droplets of water, or we're all part of a water in a sea of ocean. And so if I cause a ripple, that ripple is going to go throughout the ocean and continue on. And so what I put out, whatever kind of ripple I put out, is what I'm feeding the surrounding energy with. And again, so I think that takes us back to just as much as possible being in the space of your heart, in the space of love. And I think that's really can be very life-changing. And I also want to mention, though, that it's a process and it takes a lot of practice. And we've been doing things one way for, in my case, 50 years. That's not easy to change. So when I revert and when I am not doing it the way that I hope to be doing it, it's okay. And okay, well, good. Now it's another chance for me to do it again, to try again, to change it, to make it different. And each time we're aware and each time we change it, it gets easier and easier. And I think that's part of the being in the flow, is being just very forgiving of yourself and very understanding. And like you said, we are in physical bodies. So
I was curious, in your journey, the lesson of what has been the greatest lesson for you going through the divorce, going through the court system, which is kind of an oppressive energy, right? I mean,
very oppressive. Yes.
It's a lot. So what do you think has been your life lesson?
Unity. My life lesson is to love people unconditionally, no matter what is done to me. And that's hard to do, especially
that's big
from our background. It's hard to do, but I think that's the lesson. That's the answer. That's been the cure.
What's been the one thing that you continue to do that has helped you with that life lesson of unity and unconditional love? What has that? If you could pick one thing, what would that be?
Awareness. I mean, I would say meditation helps me to be in awareness, but the awareness of bringing myself back to that constantly. That when I have an emotion and I'm upset with somebody and it causes disconnection, and just awareness of how I'm feeling, awareness of how I'm thinking. And really, I guess the one thing, if I narrow it down, is meditating on love. When I go into meditation, I imagine just love pouring from my heart, pouring down on me and emanating out. And that's really always brings me back to center and to where I need to be going and into the flow. And whenever I'm mad at somebody, I think about it. I do what humans do. But in the end, I try to come back to that space.
And I want to make it clear for people listening, like you're not dismissing or bypassing your emotional state and going, oh, I'm just going to be in love. Like it's a process
Right.
of
It's a
connecting,
process.
release, name. Then we can get into that
Yes.
unconditional love state. What I find is we've now named this positive toxicity or whatever we can name it, but that bypassing, you're not doing that. You're tending to your, like you said,
Yes.
awareness. You're aware of what you're feeling. You're naming it. You're
Okay.
processing it. Then you can get into a love state.
Right. So for an example, maybe I get angry at somebody for saying something or doing something that I think is hurtful to myself or to other people. And I walk away. And then I take time and I think, well, what was that about? Yes, I don't agree with that person. However, I know that that person is in this physical experience and it's not the way I would do things. And it's taught me that I maybe should not associate with that person or take that person's class or whatever it is. And I just send out love to that person. Like, I know that your soul needs love. And I love myself and I forgive myself for getting upset. I thank myself for getting upset for pointing it out to me. And I even thank the person. Thank you for bringing this up. And sometimes it shows me my ego, right? So, and it reminds me I have to make space for myself just because that person didn't give space for me or for other people and was hurtful. I need to make that space for me in whatever way I need to do that. And so, yes, it's a whole process of thinking about it, releasing it, understanding it, and then sending out love to myself and to that person and to humanity.
Thank you for breaking that down. I think that was really practical.
Yeah. Yeah. I see your point. And I never want to dismiss people's pain. I think it's so important and it's valid pain. It's just, I don't think anyone wants to be stuck in it, but I think we've had a hard time helping people out of it. First and foremost, we need to validate it. Yes, this did happen to you. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it wasn't right or good thing that happened to you. Absolutely. So I never want to say like, oh, just love everybody. No, that's not.
And I got that from you. I just thought it'd be helpful.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you breaking that down so people could get a practical application.
Very important to me that their pain is not invalidated.
And the point we're making is you don't want to get stuck in the pain.
Exactly.
And then that pain body grows. Like Eckhart Tolle says, the pain body grows. What we're talking about is nurturing the pain. Even if someone else doesn't acknowledge it, even if someone else doesn't validate it, you're doing that for you.
Yes.
That's how we start healing and nurturing it and getting to the love, getting to, okay, I may not be in relationship with you in that way, but energetically, I'm going to send you love and light and wish you well.
And honestly, I think that does a lot of our thoughts. I mean, there's energetic fields around us. It's been shown by science, and our thoughts create energetic patterns. We see them on EEG. We see them in certain types of imaging. So that when we just think and feel love, it actually does emanate out into the field and can affect our surroundings. That's actually the secret of Shambhala and why monks meditate in the Himalayas, because they're sending out love and peace to the world and healing to the world. Just so when you feel like you can't do anything about a situation, maybe the Ukraine, maybe whatever, you can meditate on love. You can send out love to humanity. And that's actually changing the energy of the world.
I just love this so much.
It's
powerful.
By quantum physics. I mean, Einstein had the spooky action at a distance when he noticed that affecting one particle in one part of the universe would affect another particle in another part of the universe. At the time, they called it spooky action at a distance. Now we know it's entanglement of quantum particles, that we're entangled.
Science.
And that's why, as a mom, know when your kid is another country away, something's going on with them. When or you're, whatever have you. It's science. So really, if you want to affect change and you feel like you don't know what to do, go into your heart center and emanate the love to whatever you want to change.
I love this so much. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your energy.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful for this conversation. Where can people find you and find your book and the name of the book and how to get it?
So the name of the book is True You, True Unity, Transforming Yourself with the Quantum Power of Love. And you can email me on my website and ask for a free copy. It is on Amazon, but I'm happy to give it to anyone for free. And that's a whole nother discussion where people say, well, then it's not worth anything. And I do not believe that at all. I don't think that you price yourself according to what you're valued. This is a message that everyone deserves to have and should be free, and will change the world for the better, and will change things for the better for me if everyone knows about the energy and about the energy of love. So I'm more than happy to give it away for free. And you can find me at oracle-md.com. So ORACLE-MD.com. And there's a box there you can fill out for the email. And I think the email and phone number are listed on the website.
So if they fill that out, then do they get the book emailed to them?
Yep. There's on the email, you can type in, please send me free copy. And I will make sure that I email that to you.
That's very generous of you. And I know we got on before we got on, that was birthed out of the flow state, the love state, the book was. So just know it's filled with love, and it's filled with your heart, and that'll come through.
Yes, I hope so. And actually the book is written by, when you say the author, it says by you and me, because it did come through the flow state. And it was, I think, from the collective conscious of us all.
Love that so much. Thank you so much, Stacie, and everybody go get the book, and until we meet again.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's been beautiful. I'm so grateful to be here. And thank you to all the listeners.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to the Close the Chapter podcast. My hope is that you took home some actionable steps, along with motivation, inspiration, and hope for making sustainable change in your life. If you enjoyed this episode, click the subscribe button to be sure to get the updated episodes every week, and share with a friend or a family member. For more information about how to get connected, visit Kristen, Kristen, Boyce, BOICE.com. Thanks, and have a great day.